Greetings, Gemini Brett here with my second backyard video, or as it were, San Pablo Dam just over the fence video here on Thursday, January 26th, 4:55 a.m. according to the clock, and so we hear trucks and cars heading to work and the like. We astrologers know days begin at sunrise, so this is actually the very end of Miércoles, of Mercury's day, and I'm excited to see if I can catch that trickster rising before the sun. For Mercury at this time is a morning star. Now that's going to be some time from now, so as I wait for that to go down, or rather come up, I'm going to spend some time trying to hunt a comet. But first, I wanted to make sure I achieve a goal of sharing at this time of the year, at this time of the day, what constellations of the ecliptic of the zodiac are visible in the sky to our unaided eyes. This is video number 2. The first video was something I usually do not record, and by the way, I had my own practice before I recorded that video, but it's about connections through some kind of practice. So for me, it's getting directions, aligning to the cardinal directions of Earth, to her rotational axis, which I know as the spine of Gaia, the sword of our stone, the world tree. And that helps me be a tree myself, with the branches reaching to the heavens and the roots down to the heart of the earth, to be a living vow of this marriage of the above and below, of heavens and earth, as it were. Okay, so here we are on Earth, dancing about this beautiful light, spinning on our axis, which helps that sun rise and reach and rest and root, and the constellations through which that sun and the planets travel, they rise and reach and rest and root too. So at this time, which, to check the clock, 4:57 a.m. Pacific time, January 26, 2023, I can see that the Scorpion is rising. Now, importantly, the Scorpion is much smaller these days, typically in star maps, than it once was. This star here, well, let me make sure. It's amazing. This lens sees more than my naked eye does. So it's always a trip to look at the sky and then come look through the lens, and it's like, wait, where are all those stars coming from that I didn't see? And the way that the lens kind of distorts space can be a tricky thing to keep up with too. In fact, I'm gonna have to do this for me to connect in the view. Okay, great. So, this star is the shaft of wheat that the priestess holds. Chitra to some, Chitra, Spika, Spika, and we'll get there. But that's helping me see that just between that star, the shaft of wheat, and the priestess's hands, which today in our day and age projects to 24 degrees tropical Libra, that in between that star and the sky Scorpion, who is currently rising, we find the fulcrum of the scales, and a star that certainly competes for the coolest star name ever. It is Zubin Janubi. In the competition is the neighbor here, Zubin Shamali. And those stars respectively mean the southern claw and the northern claw of whom? Of the Scorpion, as it was once drawn. So there was a time actually where these stars were not known as the scales, but rather as a constellation called the claws. So there's the Scorpion and the claws. In the Hellenistic times, these stars hosted the, what I'll call the west point, the 0 degrees tropical Libra point, and therefore the sun at Libra equinox time west equinox time of equal day and equal night, and therefore the scales, right? I mean, there's other stories that we can tell, and I think we will as we find our way a little bit further towards the west from here. The zodiacal order, importantly, though everything will rise in the east and set in the west, which is over there, since I'm in the northern hemisphere, where the primary motion, the spinning of the sky, and where we find the planets, the sun, the moon, the ecliptic or zodiac constellations rising in the east, reaching in the south, and resting in the west. Okay, so that's the primary motion: rise, reach, rest, and root. The daily motion, thanks to the spinning of the earth. But the zodiac order is in the opposite direction, the orbital motion, and the best teacher here is Moon, for we can quickly watch her move about 13 degrees per day through the constellations in this direction, in the west to east direction, which is the orbital direction, at least for planets in direct motion like moon and sun always are. So they will move from the twins, and these are the heads of the twins, Castor and Pollux, right? So the constellation that most will call Gemini, I prefer to reserve names like Gemini, Cancer, Leo for signs, and then I use terms like twins and crab and lion for constellations, because, my friends, whether you are practicing with a sidereal equal sign zodiac, or especially a tropical equal sign zodiac like I do, signs, 12 equal parts of the ecliptic circle, and constellations, which certainly do not divide that path of the sun in our sky equally. Constellations vary significantly in size. Signs and constellations are very different things. And so you will hear me call these the twins. In our day and age, the kind of center of the twins, if you will, stars Mibsuta and Wasat are kind of in the middle of the tropical sign of Cancer. We're not going to have time really. There's a star here on the wire, I believe is one of them, but it's kind of hard to see when we're that close to the ground. It's also always hard to see the crab. The crab is incredibly dim. I am seeing, and I'm going to see it more here in the camera, like this fuzzy bit, which is the beehive cluster. It sits on the back of the crab. But gosh, with my naked eye, that's like all I'm seeing. I think the most important thing I can extend here, ooh, hello. Hopefully that shooting star showed up on the camera for you. It's a good reminder that when we present ourselves to the mysteries present themselves to us. I think I would be of better service, rather than drawing the stars of the crab in this moment, though we can come back to it. I think the better service I could offer is, it is really hard to see, especially in light polluted skies like the ones I'm currently standing in. San Francisco is just that way, and Oakland, California, just that way. There's a lot of city lights nearby, and as you can hear, I'm pretty close to a road, but fortunately one that does not have street lights eating sky. Okay, so the twins, the crab, this is the lion's head, the shepherd's crook, some say. Let's head up this way, and I'm actually going to align the camera to the ecliptic plane. Okay, so twins, crab, lion. And importantly, the lion, the only star of the lion that is on the ecliptic is the heart of the lion, Regulus, one of the royal stars. It's said to be the star that rules them all. I want to turn the lights down here so you can kind of just see the lion. Okay, so you get this kind of trapezoid. Okay, and then the head like this. So Regulus, the heart of the lion, Deneb Ola, which means tail of the lion, to Zasma and Sheraton at the hind quarters. And in our day and age, in October of 2012, Regulus processed into Tropical Virgo. And for the rest of our lives, we'll live at the 1st degree of Tropical Virgo. So marking the cusp of a sign. And remember, the signs move from the west to the east. So over here with the crab, we're in Tropical Leo. Tropical Virgo starts here at Regulus. Now, when most of us were born, that was not true, right? Regulus would have been the last degrees of Tropical Leo, but October 2012 processed to the 1st degree of Tropical Virgo. 150 degrees celestial longitude, since we measure longitude from 0 degrees Tropical Aries. All right, so lion, right? And the ecliptic runs actually through the lion's heart, but beneath the lion's feet back here, okay? And that will be easy to see when we find the next ecliptic star, at least bright star, which is Spica, Chitra, a star with many names, a very important star, a star to which many sidereal zodiacs are configured. So in the tropical zodiac in our day and age, this bright star, let me dim the lights again, right up at the kind of top left of the frame. No, I'm seeing that. I went the wrong way. That's Arcturus, which interestingly is 30 degrees away from the ecliptic plane, but projects longitudinally to the same degrees as the star I want to put on the screen, which is Spica or Spica. And now we're gonna have to play this astronomy game. Let me go here to the Big Bear, Ursa Major, and the Big Dipper asterism, which points to Polaris, North Star, the last two stars on the cup we call the pointer stars, pointing to Polaris, North Star. Okay, well, there's other games we can play. One, and it'll be helpful for me to take the camera off the tripod, so please forgive the shakiness here. But one is if you drill a hole in the bottom of the cup, right? This is like the handle. So right now, the cup is kind of spilling out. If I drill a hole in the bottom of the cup, it will leak water onto the celestial lion. There's Regulus, the lion's heart, and the head of the lion, okay? So even when the lion is down below ground later, at that time, the dipper will have spun as the sky does and have its cup kind of getting filled from the heavens, and we could drill a hole in the bottom of the cup and it would drip water onto the lion, then down below the ground in the 6th house. Fun, right? Okay, but the one I wanted to show you is while we can use these two stars, the last stars of the cup, the pointer stars, to point to Polaris, the star in our day and age, which is aligned to Gaia's spine. The north pole of Earth is pointing towards that star, the north celestial pole. It's very, very close. It's the tail star of Ursa Minor, or the Little Dipper here. And then we see the dragon, by the way, which runs in between. There's a comet here that's distracting me, but I'm going to get back to that. So Polaris, Little Dipper, the pointer stars of Big Dipper pointing the way. Okay, well there's another one, so we can follow the arc of the Dipper's tail. We say arc to Arcturus. So there's a wonderful story about Arctus and Callisto, his mother, that I think I'll tell another time. But just so you know, Arctus and Arcturus is part of the herdsman, who we say herds the big bear. So all constellations are going to spin about Earth's axis, which is pointing here. I'm looking north at North Star. The northern sky spins counterclockwise. So the Dipper later is going to be down here. Let's see if we can find Cassiopeia. Not yet, or I'm seeing part. Okay, so I'm not going to trip on that right now. But as the Dipper spins around Arctus, who some see as one who's kind of like driving this agricultural plow, or pulling the wagon, pulling the wain. I know the Big Dipper is Santa's sleigh, and this the train of reindeers, with Arcturus the red-nosed reindeer, and every day and night they will spin all the way around the world, delivering toys to all the folks of Earth, you see. Anyway, so we can follow the arc to Arcturus and spike to Spica, or they used to say, follow the arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica. Okay. Well, all that because I made a mistake in doing this with the lion and saying, okay, well, we're going to go from the lion to, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. No, here's the lion's heart. The lion's heart is on the ecliptic, but then the ecliptic runs south of the line in the northern hemisphere sky. That means below, and then runs just above Spica here. Okay, this is the priestess. I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod now, so please bear with me for a second. Turning things. All right, this one's going to get particularly shaking. Hold your breath. Okay, so now, where are we? Back to the lion here. Okay, so you're going to see things have changed since I've just been babbling on here. Like, do you see how the twins are now further into the ground? There was a star I was pointing to before, which is still just, well, I got it last blink right then, and now it's gone. If you rewind the tape, I think you'll see a blink between these trees right here, just 10 seconds ago, and now it's gone because the west rests, right? The west sets. Castor, sorry to say it this way, but is going to die, and his immortal twin Pollux will follow him down below into the underworld. Okay, so twins, very dim crab, lion, and there we go. If I keep my feet on the ground, okay, then I'm going from the lion to priestess. And again, I use these terms like lion and priestess rather than Leo and Virgo, because constellations and signs are very different things. So here we have lion, and I'm going to dim the light again. Okay, so now you can kind of just see the lion. This is a little bit more like what I'm seeing with my naked eye right now in these very light polluted skies. It's a wonder to get away from the city lights and really connect with the skies. It's meant to be seen, but I will say that light polluted skies, except for very dim constellations like the fishes and the crab, kind of help us learn the constellations of the zodiac, because generally speaking, they're kind of bright and they really stand out. Okay, so here's the lion again. Deneb Ola, tail of the lion as well, north of the ecliptic plane. the heart of the line Regulus is right on the ecliptic, and the ecliptic is this curve that's then curving just a tiny bit north of Spica here. So let me turn up the lights and we'll start meeting the priestess. This is a waist star, often shown, some say the shoulder or elbow, Porama. In our day and age, 10 degrees tropical Libra. Okay, and then the priestess has one hand reaching up into the sky. The star that you see close to the top of your screen here is Vindia Matrix, Porama, and then the kind of top body of the priestess reaches up towards the lion. And there's wonderful stars here like Zavi Java, which is competing for coolest star name. Okay, so Spica, the shaft of wheat that the priestess holds. I'm going to center now more on the priestess. Oddly on a telephone pole. Maybe we're trying to call her back. There are many stories of the priestess of the heavens. One of them is Astarte, who we are told was like the last immortal, the last of the guides and guidesses to leave when we were falling in our ways and losing reverence. The guides and guidesses split, but she kept the faith in us as long as she could, and we did not earn it to her expectations, and so she went there up into the heavens, but that she remains ever close to us, waiting for us to get it together again and realign, and as soon as we do, she will be back. So some say that it is Astarte, as this priestess of the heavens, who holds the scales of balance and of justice. I should say that there are many different forms of the law. There's Pneumos, which is the law of man, and Themos, which is the law of heaven. And it is that type of balance that Astarte tends to and asks us to realign with, so she can come back and guide us face to face. All right, I want to point out the crow Corvus here, okay, which is not one of the ecliptic constellations. The ecliptic, I'm going to dim the lights again, is passing just south of Porama and just north of Spica here. Okay, so the ecliptic's coming through like this. So the crow lives south of the ecliptic, and that means closer to the ground in northern hemisphere skies. Be closer to the heavens in southern hemisphere skies. The crow is eternally chasing Crater, this grail. Beneath them is the sacred spring, which is the Milky Way, which we can't see even if San Francisco wasn't blinding us over there, because it's down below the ground from this particular latitude on Earth, but other places can see that. There's a wonderful story about the crow who was sent to fill that cup with the sacred water to bring to a feast for Zeus, but was distracted by figs on a tree and didn't fill the cup, but just ate the figs and flew back to Apollo, who had sent him on this mission, and claimed that a serpent, who is here actually, these are stars of Hydra, which lives between the crow and the crater and the Milky Way, which is the sacred spring, right? And so the crow said this serpent kept me from filling the cup, but Apollo, of course, knows truth, knew that crow Corvus was lying, and sent him up into the heavens with these punishments. One is he's eternally chasing this cup which cannot be found, right? So it's full with the beautiful water, but the crow can't get there. There's also water of the Milky Way spring here, but the serpent is, in this case, blocking it, right? So the crow is thirsty, and the crow will never be seen when figs are on the tree, because though this will change over time with precession, especially a couple thousand years, and it's still true to this day, when figs are ripe in the northern hemisphere, the sun is passing through this area of space, and at that time, of course, when the sun is here, all of these stars are under the beams, so the crow cannot be seen when the figs are on the tree, right? So many of these wonderful starry stories of old speak to us of the ancient wisdom, and I mean, some of this for the purpose of learning star calendar, if you will. All right, so back to the priestess here, and let's start again with the twins, and we'll check in on their resting. Castor and Pollux, the very dim crab, the celestial lion, and we find our way to the priestess of the heavens, and then the scales, and then the scorpion. So let me stay here. The star in the upper right, and let me just show you, is Spica, is the shaft of wheat that the priestess holds. Dimming the light so you can kind of see this, oh, I almost said parallelogram, but it's not, is it? I guess trapezoid. That is like the priestess body. There's some say the dress. And there's feet stars down here. Really huge constellation, actually the largest of the ecliptic constellations. The priestess, from head to feet, describes 47 degrees of ecliptic arc, so more than a sign and a half worth of sky. Yeah, huge. Okay, and some say that the priestess holds the scales. Well, this star down here that I'm circling is Zubin el-Janubi, which these days we typically draw as the fulcrum of the scales, and show the scales. Hold on, I just want to get this to a place where we can leave it steady and talk scales and scorpions. It's kind of where we began, isn't it? So, Spica here. Here's Zubin el-Janubi, Zubin el-Shamali. I'm going to dim the lights. This is more like what I'm seeing with my naked eye. I have to remember that when I go back and forth. So do you see this star, these three? Those are like the top of the scales, like most of us show them, like this, the bar, right, of balance. And then the scales hang down this way towards the scorpion. But again, back in the day, it wasn't the priestess holding the scales. She holds this shaft of wheat, which Spica here is in the upper right of your frame. It's the scorpion that holds the scales, or in fact these are the claws. So these days, and I'm going to come down towards the ground so we can see more scorpion here, and a little bit of the San Pablo Dam reservoir. These days folks usually show these three, which are Graphius or Deshuba and Ekrab and Fang. They in our day and age mark the early degrees of tropical Sagittarius. This is like 3 degrees tropical Sagittarius. Zubin el-Janubi here, which again means the southern claw. The scorpion was shown holding the scales. I was just circling the wrong star, sorry. Zubin el-Janubi, so between Spica and Shuba here, the ecliptic's running this way. It runs right through Zubin el-Janubi. Spica has a little bit of southern latitude, south of the ecliptic plane. Zubin el-Janubi is like right on the ecliptic, which then just runs here through the top of the scorpion and above Antares, the scorpion's heart. Okay, so let me get the scales at the top of the frame. Zubin el-Janubi, Zubin el-Shamali, the claws of the southern and northern claws respectively. And Zubanel Janubi in our day and age, 15 degrees, tropical Scorpio. Okay, the front of the scorpion, which really is kind of like the scorpion's mouth, and he's reaching his claws up here holding the scales. That's like an older view. That's like an elbow of the scorpion, and the scorpion's southern claw and the scorpion's northern claw. All right, and so this is like the front of the scorpion where the mouth is, right here at a crab. And we go down through the scorpion's heart, the bright royal star Antares, which is here kind of in the midst of these three. There's a beautiful like threeness in the scorpion in that way. So Antares, along with Regulus, the heart of the lion, this heart of the scorpion is one of the 4 royal stars that date way back to the Persian tradition. Some say Chaldean. There's some debate about this. I don't know, but what I do know is for a long time these stars have been revered as the markers of the heaven. And though Antares is currently rising in the east, traditionally Antares is associated as a kind of gatekeeper of the west. And Aldebaran, which is directly across the way, and therefore, as here we find Antares rising in the eastern sky. What does that mean? 12th house, right? That right now Aldebaran is down below the ground in the northwest in the 6th house. Okay, so in our day and age, Antares, 12 degrees tropical Sagittarius. And it's a wonderful one to get to know. Now it is below the ecliptic plane. In fact, for some reason, the astronomical or the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, it's some secret meeting in 1929, as I like to describe it, like cut Antares off of the ecliptic plane. And they say now this area of their zodiac belongs to Ophiuchus. And I mean, Antares is actually only 5 degrees south of the ecliptic, which is running between Zubanel Janubi here, surrounded to Shuba. It's like running right through here, okay, down. Like Antares is a much brighter star, 14th or 15th brightest star, depending on the day, since it is variable. 14th or 15th brightest star in our sky, much closer, 5 degrees away from the ecliptic plane, than this star, which is called Psyche, like Psyche of Ophiuchus, of the serpent bearer. But for some reason, the IAU has cut Antares off the ecliptic plane. I have some pretty slides and whatnot that I will share with you. I will put up a bonus class for those of you who are currently taking the Astronomy for Astrologers class on why the sky clearly shows this 13th sign thing is a lie. That does not mean Ophiuchus is not an amazing constellation. Huge, by the way. Up here is, so Russell, I can't ever remember the name of this star. That's one of the powerful stars. See this, these 3 here are like the head of the serpent bearer, Ophiuchus, comes way down here. Like these 3 are his waist. Well, that's not true. 1, 2, 3. Because here, I think we find the head of the serpent that he's holding. So it's so tricky to go back and forth between the sky with my naked eye and this camera. Oh, well, let me share this story with you a little bit. Okay, so there's a wonderful ancient story from Kemet, the land we now call Egypt, where well, where to start? Well, let me say this. The mummification process, all of your organs are removed except for the heart, which is said to be the seat of the soul. and also something you will need if you in your underworld passage can make it through the many trials that gain you access to the throne of Osiris. And there you will be judged in this ceremony, which is the weighing of the heart. So your heart is then removed and weighed in the scales against the feather of Ma'at, which is truth and wisdom. And if the heart is as light as the feather of truth, then it's heaven for you. If the heart is heavier, then you are consumed by Amet, this kind of lion, crocodile, hippopotamus beam. And in some versions it's lights out. In other versions you come back around to give it another go. I will say importantly, you will also be consumed if your heart is lighter than the feather, which means pursue not only truth, but make sure you are here to feel. For feeling is healing, is knowing, is growing. Okay, so why do I point to this side of the sky? I see Spica, the shaft of wheat that the priestess of the heavens holds, as the feather of Ma'at. And then here we have the scales, and here we have the scorpion's heart, Antares. So the scales weighing the heart against the feather. And this is this trial that the moon goes through every month, that the sun goes through every year on its way to galactic center. Now, if we were in dark skies, and I wonder what might happen if I just like crank up this ISO. No, just more light pollution. If we were in dark skies, you would see the Milky Way running right through this space, because the tail of the scorpion, which has not yet risen, and the arrow of the archer, which is certainly not risen, it's down below the ground in the first house, and Ophiuchus, this is foot, Ophiuchus stands on galactic center, while the scorpion's stinger points to galactic center, and the archer's arrow points to galactic center from the other way. This triangulation, okay? So this trial of weighing the feather against the heart in the scales of balance as we make our way towards a place that's another tradition called the Golden Gate, or the Golden Key, the place of our soul's destiny. Heavy, right? So feel, but also stay true. Tricky thing to do. Now I'll say there's another route. I'm going to turn this thing towards the ecliptic here. Okay, so remember in our day and age, Spica, 24 degrees tropical Libra. It's an important one to know. Zubin el Janubi. Let me dim the lights. Oh, I'm pointing at Arcturus again. So hold on a second. Yeah, while I'm there, let me just say this thing about latitude and longitude. So longitude, celestial longitude, is a measurement along the ecliptic plane. So when I say things like 24 tropical Libra, that is a measure of longitude. 15 degrees tropical Scorpio, Zubin el Janubia. 10 degrees tropical Sagittarius, Antares, heart of the scorpion. And yes, it is strange to be saying scorpion and Sagittarius, right? But again, this is why I differentiate names like scorpion, constellation, from Scorpio, sign. Signs and constellations are a very different thing. And in our day and age of the great year, the precessional year of about 26,000 years, our tropical signs are on average about one constellation away from the traditional assignments or the alignments of a couple thousand years ago in the Hellenistic age. We have to deal with that, and actually it opens up amazing gateways of deeper understanding and connection to the heavens and earth. Okay, so on longitude, which is a measurement along the ecliptic plane, as measured from 0 degrees tropical Aries, okay? So the opposite point to 0 Aries is at 0 Libra, tropical Libra, which is up here, kind of the head zone of the priestess, currently above our electric pole there. So 24 tropical Libra for Spica, 10 tropical Libra for Porrima. That means that this star in our day and age is 190 degrees away from 0 Aries, and we're coming this way. Okay, then Ebola, the lion's tail. I'm in tropical Virgo, coming into tropical Libra, 10 tropical Libra, 24 tropical Libra. And again, the ecliptic's running just north of Spica here. Okay, let me get back to Regulus. Regulus is very close to the ecliptic, heart of the lion, 0 degrees tropical Virgo in our day and age, Libra. Okay, so this is like a sign's worth of space. We're into tropical Libra, 10 tropical Libra, 24 tropical Libra. Longitude, a measurement along the ecliptic plane. Latitude is a measurement north or south. So Spica here is about a degree south. I should say a degree, but that's not quite it. Your index finger at an arm's length, and this is not it because that's an arm's length from my head, but not from the camera lens, okay? But your pointer finger at an arm's length is about a degree of sky. Spica is about a degree south of the ecliptic plane, and Arcturus is like 30 degrees north of the ecliptic plane. If I keep making this mistake of thinking Arcturus is Spica, as I have, I think, thrice now, it's not a mistake at all. It's a reminder to show you fun things like follow the arc to Arcturus and speed on to Spica, or spike to Spica, and also to speak about this strange thing that we project stars to the ecliptic plane. If we want to describe their coordinates in, well, longitude and latitude is X and Y, because that's a coordinate system centered on the ecliptic plane, where longitude is measured in degrees around the ecliptic plane from 0 degrees tropical Aries, which I will describe as the east equinox point, and you'll learn more about that if you're in the class with me. But latitude is a measurement north or south of the ecliptic plane. And Arcturus is like 30 degrees, so that's like a sign's worth of sky north of the ecliptic. Now, an example I always love to give is I moved from Seattle, Washington to Richmond, California here in the Bay. I literally live due south of my old house in West Seattle. I mean, almost exactly, it's a trip. So we are in the same terrestrial longitude, which here on Earth we are measuring from the prime meridian, which we know these days because some colonial vote is in Greenwich, England, right? In the UK. And so Richmond, California, Seattle, Washington are the same distance to the west of that prime meridian. Like, I'm due south of my old home, but that doesn't mean I can walk down the street and have a cup of coffee with a Seattle friend when the sun rises, right? Like, we'd have to take a long drive or a shorter plane ride, at least in time. Same distance, I think. You know, so latitude and longitude, like, it's an interesting thing to be at the same longitude here in Richmond as Seattle, Washington. And by the way, that means that the degree at the local midheaven right now is the same for these two places and any two places that are north and south of one another, or on the same meridian, or on the same line of terrestrial longitude. But of course, latitude matters as well. We can have a northern hemisphere location and a southern hemisphere location aligned to the same longitude. I think like New York and Peru can work in that way if I'm seeing the globe in my mind space correctly. Okay, so a really important note about latitude, right? It's good to get to know the stars that are on the ecliptic plane celestial or ecliptic zodiac constellations and stars if you want to participate with seeing the chart in the sky, because of course the circumference of our chart wheels is the ecliptic. It's the path of the sun, and for the most part the planets, it's the plane of the Earth-Sun relationship, and Arcturus is not on it. Still, Arcturus is known as one of the 15 Bohemian stars, magical stars of Mercury. Algorab of the Crow is one of those too. I could get them all on the screen at the same time, okay? Because here's the Crow down below. I think you can see where up is because of that electric pole. Thank you, technology. So Crow and Algorab, and then Spica here, Arcturus. Well, Algorab's in different longitudes. The Crow projects to, because what we do is we draw perpendicular lines to the ecliptic plane, projects to like 10 degrees tropical Libra up here in this Porama space. But Spica, currently 24 tropical Libra, shares that longitude with another Bohemian stars, because Spica is also on the list with Arcturus. So even though Arcturus is 30 degrees north of the ecliptic plane, that's latitude, right? Distance north or south of the ecliptic, celestial latitude, it has the same longitude. They're both, in our day and age, 24 tropical Libra. Okay? Right, so where were we? Oh, yes, the weighing of the heart. Right. So here's, in this model, the feather of Ma'at. And that feather will be weighed in the scales against the heart. Here's the heart of the scorpion. Here's the scales. The Zubin al-Janubi, fulcrum of the scales, or the southern claw, 15 degrees tropical Scorpio. Spica here, 24 degrees tropical Libra. Antares here, 10 degrees tropical Sagittarius, in the ecliptic just north of Spica, right through Zubin al-Janubi, and then about 5 degrees north of Antares here, okay? And that trial on the way to the Golden Gate, galactic center, the heart of the Milky Way, or really that place where the Ouroboros, the cosmic serpent, bites its own tail. The cosmic serpent being the Milky Way, which surrounds us. In other traditions, Leviathan. Okay, well, we're going to find another one of the Bohemian stars, and by the way, Antares is one of them. And it's perhaps in this other route, instead of weighing your heart in the scales against the feather of Ma'at, perhaps you could just do this Kundalini rising thing, okay? And so Ophiuchus, who is huge and who is here, stands on the galactic center, which is just about now starting to rise, and we can't see in this light polluted sky, but he holds this serpent. And yeah, this is why I had to zoom out, because the head of the serpent's actually here, and it's reaching up towards the heavens, at least from the northern hemisphere point of view, and it reaches up towards the northern crown. So another one of the Bohemian stars, I always say that, Bohemian stars, the Mercury's magical stars, is Gemma or Alphecca. That bright star there, which is at the center of the northern crown, Corona Borealis, right? So what happens when the Kundalini rises? It activates the chakras, culminating in the crown, right? And so that's a way that I like to kind of explore the potentiality of the sky training. Either we can cut the heart out and weigh it in the scales against the feather of truth and wisdom, or we can let the serpent energy rise through the spine and follow the serpent who's being held by Ophiuchus up to the northern crown, Corona Borealis. Learning stories like this, and you can hear I'm creating my own based upon ancient tales, which may or may not have anything to do with the sky. This is not what was written. It's me taking stories from different lands or trainings from different traditions and applying them to what I see in the sky. On one level, it helps me understand and remember how the sky connects and helps me share and, you know, teach, if you can call this that. But it also inspires me to be a better human being. And it's something I'm reminded of when I get out here and connect with the sky. These are the kinds of conversations that, I don't know, I have with the stars, I guess I should say. And it's an honor and a privilege to have this opportunity to share them with you here. So thank you for tuning in. I'll say this about Ophiuchus. Definitely not a sign. Don't believe that hype. I literally feel it was a conspiracy. But Ophiuchus is an amazing constellation, and many in the tradition kind of projected the essence of Asclepius, the great healer, one of Chiron's great students, and a child of the light, of the sun, of Helios, Apollo, onto those Ophiuchian stars. And the serpent tender, right? So serpent medicine, and perhaps this gets into tree of good and evil stuff, or perhaps this gets into Kundalini rising stuff, and many will know that the Scorpion, or the sign of Scorpio, which is not Scorpius, right? This is 10 degrees Tropical Aquarius, but, or sorry, 10 degrees Tropical Sagittarius is the heart of the Scorpion in our day and age. But in the sidereal zodiac, that 10 degrees Tropical Sagittarius, in some sidereal zodiacs, there are many, is living around, 16 degrees sidereal Scorpio, right? I mean, the sidereal signs are much more closely aligned to the constellations. It's an argument that siderealists often make, but don't really have any defense for the constellations not being equal in size. And I think that way I just said that was a bit too charged. Anyway, that's interesting, because like a guard is just pulling up to take people's fees as they come to the reservoir, and I love that he honked right then. He's like, foul! Oh, the things I would scrub from the tape if I only could. And maybe I will. Anyway, yeah, I think it's probably the right place to end this eternal babble for now. I want to spend some time connecting with the sky. I want to see if I can find this comet as well. Take a few pictures with a different camera that lets me really zoom. And then I'll turn this back on for a couple receptions later. One is to find, I mean, we're already starting to see, though, you know, it's hard to say because there's so much light pollution, but as the sun rises, even before the sun rises, right, from the first, where it's completely invisible down below the ground, the sun will rise, as all beings do, from the first beneath the eastern horizon to the 12th above the eastern horizon, and therefore become visible, right? Like the Scorpion is in the 12th right now. So why do we call the 12th hidden things? And it's not about the Scorpion, it's about the sun. The sun rises to illuminate the earth, but when he does, he hides the heavens. Yeah? The only star you will see by day is that star of ours we call sun. There can be only one, you know? In the sun's point of view, you can see these correspondences of the sun's exaltation in Aries and Leo domicile in that beautiful truth. So before sunrises, we will have the birds singing and the dawning light taking stars from our eyes. Only bright stars, and especially bright stars which are like further from the dawning light of the horizon, like Arcturus here, right? Or bright stars like that time I called Spica Arcturus, like Arcturus up there, or even Spica, but the closer to the ground, the closer to the horizon, especially the eastern horizon, the closer to the rising light, they will go away. And I will never see which stars currently host the travel of the sun, yes? But one way I can estimate, I think that was on frame, it was a beautiful fireball. One way I can estimate where the star is to find the stars that are last visible to my eyes before sunrise. And we should see some stars of the Archer. I will be back for that video. Thanks for spending so much time with me here. Your presence is a present. See you in space.